Dr. Kennard here with Dr. Tom Foolery, Railway Vagabond. Hitting the rails, Dr. Tom Foolery, huh?
Yeah, fun times.
Yeah. We were just talking about lawns and rain, and I was about to say that one of the benefits of being divorced and not living in the suburbs is that I will never, ever, ever have to mow another lawn again. And I'm quite happy with that. I won't have to trim any shrubbery. I won't have to do any of that stuff. I won't have to throw pesticides on the lawn or fertilizer on the lawn or burn. I had to burn stuff. Yeah, yeah, I hated that. I sucked at it too. I hated it and I sucked at it at the same time. Not surprising that you would hate something that you suck at. Tobin Templeman,
Good morning.
good
Hey,
morning, sir.
Tobin.
How y'all doing?
Doing okay? How about you?
Hmm.
And I'm ready to get after it. I really am. I'm ready today. It feels good.
You feel like today it feels to me for me. I've been trying to get out of first gear, and I don't think yeah. I just feel like it's difficult for me to get out of first gear right now. But you feel good, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Hmm.
excited about uh certain projects that I get to tackle, and but I am kind of amped up and fired up because the stories that you talked about, uh like I have friends who are you have been affected in a way to the stories that you were talking about, and I was like, damn. But you also said, I also remembered too, you have a story you wanted to tell us.
Oh, good.
You
So
kind of left me on a cliffhanger.
right. So the job, right? My job situation. I had quit my old job, and then what happened is that my new job that I was supposed to take, the one that I got so I left my old job and working with people in their homes and everything because I had because I was given a letter. I was accepted at this job, and it was a good hours, right? It would be an overnight job and Monday through Friday kind of stuff, a dream position. And then, like a few days before I was supposed to start, they said, "Oh, we kind of sort of don't have that for you."
Hmm.
And so I'm trading emails back. No, I'm sending emails on Friday afternoon saying, I guess since you never got back to me, I guess I'm not going in for training on Monday. And I got the email back on Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. saying, "Oh, sorry." So that's the history of this. And the name of the company is Delta, by the way. I'm gonna name and shame. So the name of the company is Delta, which is funny too, right? Just because of Delta. So yesterday, I'm like doing my thing. I'm like typing jokes. I'm like working, doing stuff, and I get a phone call from a phone number I don't recognize. And who is it? It's the HR department from Delta, apologizing about the mess. And I had fully expected never to hear from these people ever again. And she's like, the HR person is, well, we're really sorry. I had a personal crisis, so I was out of work for a week, and then the house managers changed, and so, but we do have a position to offer you. And I'm like, oh, okay, tell me about the position. Well, they offered me what amounts to a managerial position, and I'm like, but since I don't see, here's the insidious nature of it, everyone. Since I don't have a job right now, I said, sure, why not? Yeah, I have these other two jobs I might be getting, but that they might, I'm going to hear back from. Well, one I'm definitely going to hear back from today, but yesterday, I'm like, I don't even know if I have a job or not. So I said, sure, I will. I'll accept this shitty job that you're offering me, at least the possibility of taking the job, and on the positive, it wouldn't interfere with this show because it's all second shift stuff, 3 to 11. But it's an entirely different job, and it's a shitty management job. And so that's my story, my odd story. It's like the time that one of my girlfriends broke up with me and kicked me out of the house at 6 o'clock in the morning while I was still drunk from the night before. And then she came back a few months later saying, I want to get the band back together again. And it was kind of like that.
You get these mixed signals. You're like excited. You're like, oh yeah, I got no, and then you get let down. Yeah, I've been through similar experiences like that.
Yeah, and they cost me money. They cost me money because I had a job, and my girlfriend, she's like hearing my entire rant, which is basically this right here, except a lot much less animated, talking about it now with much less cursing too. But yeah, it just boggles the brain. Yeah.
Yeah, unorganized. It seems like, and the poor lady had her own struggles she was trying to work with. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a company though should have checks and balances and like someone to pick up that slack and to be able to like keep things going in an organized manner. That is really yeah.
Well, D Park said I had a similar experience once. It's so irritating. Yeah. And Scott Duke says it's been my guiding principle that you're not really hired until the first paycheck clears. That's a good attitude, actually, Scott Duke. And Paul Camish, hope you're doing well, Paul. I hope you're feeling well. And once again, if you haven't heard Paul's crazy story from 2 days ago, I'm going to reference that. Then I might just clip that out, that whole like 15 or 20-minute bit about testicular explosions. And I might just put that on its own standalone video because it's so crazy.
That is, oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like that was horrifying. A completely horrifying fucking story.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I feel like we should all donate for the girlfriend therapy. For the girlfriend to get her therapy, or for me, because I feel like we could probably get two funds going. Hey, what's up, Dragons and Genesis? Hope you're doing well. And Kevin Chaos is in the chat.
Awesome.
Yeah. I got to tell you, the last two after parties have been pretty good. They've been pretty awesome. With I don't even know what we were talking. I know I got jazzed up a lot yesterday. That's what I did. I got jazzed up a lot for her being your therapist. And Please Secular Dave says, yeah, well, you should. Yeah. There should be a whole fund for her for being my therapist, indeed. And then you can make an argument that I should be paying you people also. Did you hear that Joe Rogan got COVID? I can't, the fucking news cycle was so crazy today, everyone. It's like I was doing the interview with Skids the Clown yesterday with Jack, my Monday evening co-host, and we were recording the interview, and just before we hit the record button, I got the news, or I found that Joe Rogan has COVID. And he took ivermectin along with all the other crap, right? You just threw everything at it. And I'm like, what a fuck, telling people he took ivermectin. And when everyone, we know people are getting poisoned by it. And just another example of that guy being irresponsible. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that yesterday. Kendra read it off to me, and I had a chuckle. And I was blown away that he would use something from a veterinary clinic. Like, holy shit. Like, there's so much that people like distrust parts of authority of, like, from medical to, everything else,
Yeah.
And they just don't have trust for it, and they make really bad decisions.
From what I read, there was a New York Times article that I was reading about Rogan. I don't think Rogan's ever said whether or not he's gotten the vaccine or not. But what he is willing to do is to tell people he took ivermectin, which just shows you the quality of the man. I mean where his mind's at. And I'd say that's being a shitty dad. I would say that's being a shitty, of course, being irresponsible on this huge platform where he has a bunch of other idiots following him. It's completely irresponsible.
It is. It really is. I keep on having this issue with this microphone, and I've started to realize that it goes up in volume. I don't know if it's like
You sound good, dude.
bothersome.
You sound good. I mean, from over here.
Yeah.
If anyone has an issue, please say so. But actually, Simply Secular Dave, I actually went to the video because he posted it on the gram. He posted it on Instagram, and he did say he took ivermectin. He said he took mononucleoid, blah, 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 all the different types. But he did say he took ivermectin. Because I did click onto the Instagram post that he did on it. And he said he got it from Florida, as I recall. He was doing it. Who would have thought that you would get COVID doing an indoor show? I think it was an indoor show in Florida, right? Dragons and Genesis, tell me, what kind of mic do you use? That's what Jason there, Dragons, is asking.
The Elgato Wave? And it I don't know, it goes up in volume like as I start talking, and it's weird. If there's a small noise in the room, it'll jack all the way up, and it just right now it's going up in volume on me. It's weird. Like, I don't know how to control that yet. I have to research it.
There's dynamic volume adjustment that will try to normalize your volume for you. But if you let it just run wild, it will try and normalize all volume. Regardless of what you want or not.
I have fans going on, and I can't turn them off because it's like it's hot around here.
It falls fucking hot. Yeah. It's sexist in August or September. Dave, what's up?
It is.
Dave!
I'm not even going to ask Dave. I'm not even going to bring it up. I'm not going to bring up the topic.
Which one?
Doing booking for the show, Dave. I'm not even going to bring that up.
Oh, I thought you were talking about healthcare in Canada.
No. Well, there's so many things there's so many things I can't talk to Dave about, right? Healthcare, ideas, booking for the show, all that kind of stuff.
Hey, I'm gonna take a book. Pick a book. Actually, put one on your wish list, and I'll buy that book, and then I'll put all the US dollars that I can't spend right now in it and mail it to you, so that you can pay for more therapy with the girlfriend. Maybe buy her a nice, gift card for something. And
very nice, Dave. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Dragon says about your microphone. Yeah, the hardware great, but having a software issue. There should be a way to disable the auto adjustment. I would think so, right?
Yeah, if you go into the microphone settings, it'll say automatic volume control, and you just uncheck it. It's like when you set the automatic white balance on your camera, and it makes you look ridiculous. You go all green or something.
So this is some nightmare juice from Tesla Ranger. At least, job well done, Tesla, about prefacing the story properly. And here's the actual story. People who take the large horse dose are finding, strips the intestines. That can't be good.
Oh no.
That can't be good at all. Yeah, so Rogan said he took steroids. That's right, Dr. Mordecai. He basically threw the kitchen sink at it once he tested positive. Seems to be doing well now.
When did he get diagnosed with this? When was it?
I believe it was Sunday night. He flew back, I think, over the weekend on like maybe Friday or Saturday. And then once he was back, I guess he's in Austin now. He just moved to Austin. He started coming down with symptoms, said he wasn't feeling right, took the test, and then just hit himself with like the vitamin drip. The ivermectin, the steroids, all kinds of. He just hit it with everything.
When I fell off watching Joe Rogan. He was getting tested and testing his guest. But to put all that money into that and then not get the vaccines and stuff, like that sounds ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it does. Dragon says, your dumbass just took the vaccine and wore a mask. Yeah, who would have thought that would work, right, Dragons? Yeah, I guess when you have a lot of money, like Joe Rogan, and you think that you're in such great health, he has a functioning immune system. You know, you've heard all the buzzwords that a lot of the anti-vaxxers say, that he feels like he can just get away with it, and it won't affect him. He did quarantine himself from his kids and his wife and everything, so he was being responsible in that way.
Well, yeah, being 1% responsible, and then, you know.
Yeah. And then just telling all of his meathead fans that, and I have to tell you, I was really a fan of Rogan's podcast for quite a while. And I think you can visibly see the decline in his skepticism and his humanism.
I think it was the monetization of his unskepticism. Like when he realized that his base was 90% of the InfoWars base. Yeah. When he realized that the Trumpers are the people who are watching him.
Sure.
And, it's fan the flames, feed the fire, throw in the fuel, right? And if you live in that world long enough, I've told people this before, like as a really smart kid living in a family that's, maybe questionable in their choices, it takes a lot to break you free of the environment you're in and the information you're exposed to. If you have Fox News on your TV 6 hours a day, you're going to start questioning the truth.
Yep. No, you're spot on with that, Dave. You're spot on. Donna doesn't know who Joe Rogan is. All right. Joe Rogan is a funny comedian. I'll say that. He is a funny comedian. He is a good stand-up. He's been working for decades. He was a Boston-based guy, too. In high school, he was in Newton, which is a affluent suburb of Boston. And he was on talk radio, right? Talk radio. Well, that was one of his first TV roles. He did Fear Factor. He was the host for Fear Factor. And he has probably one of the most popular podcasts out there, the Joe Rogan Experience. It has become the new Johnny Carson for comedians, because back in the day, if you're a comedian, you wanted to go on Johnny Carson. Now his fan base is so big. Being on Joe Rogan helps make your career. It doesn't make or break it, but it does help quite a bit.
Yeah, he absolutely has a tremendous following and very loyal fans. And you don't get that kind of loyalty out of logical, analytical, skeptical people, right? So,
what's that? Are you trying to say that I should become more popular, Dave, by being less?
Just the way you are. You just stay in your lane, Andy. Your people will come to you.
Yeah. All right.
Andy, if you start taking horse dewormer, I'm gonna unfollow you.
Okay, and as well you should. If I start taking ivermectin, that's a sign, everyone, that there's some. Well, maybe you should tell the girlfriend to get me to a neurologist, to tell you the truth.
We'll conduct you over the border and get you some good health care and get you
some good health care. Boston has world-class health care. It's just the fees. It's just the amount of money I'd have to shell out for it.
I don't want you spending all your cancer money on that.
Oh, I know, right? I've been saving up my cancer money for years at this point.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with Scapegoat Iscariot. Points out I stopped watching Joe Rogan when he didn't dig into Alex Jones. Yeah, that's the thing with Rogan, is that he doesn't put his guests to task, really.
But remember, him and Alex Jones have been friends since they were pretty much teenagers, right? So that was expected on his show.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I've had people I know for years, and I wouldn't put them on the show.
But,
And-
but did he want to co-opt his audience? Did he
well,
want to, and that's a part of what I was just talking about. When you bring on a guy who has that great of a dedicated following, at that time he was, one of the number one guys out there.
yeah.
Do you absorb a little bit of his insanity? Do you allow that to continue on your show, or do you bust his balls and possibly lose some of your audience and have no chance with any of his audience? Well, when you're looking at millions of subscribers, it changes your perspective.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, I remember doing shitty yard work years ago, when I was living in the suburbs, when I was unhappily married, and I was listening to Sam Harris, and he was talking about how people get incentivized, right? I'm sure that if you're watching any of Sam Harris's material, he talks about this every once in a while, about how different systems incentivize people for all kinds of different behaviors. So you don't have to be a sociopath or a psychopath to be a suicide bomber if you grow up, or if you're surrounded in a society that incentivizes that kind of behavior. That's quote unquote normal. In fact, you might be considered to be an excellent student of that society. You're just responding to the incentives. So you see like the evolution of Joe Rogan from being kind of borderline skeptic, humanist, to where he is today. And yeah, I think you're spot on, Dave. The man's just been given all the wrong incentives.
Yeah. And
They gave him like it's a ridiculous amount of money
150 million.
to go off YouTube and
Yeah.
to be a part of I can't even remember the company's name right now, but it's a ridiculous amount.
Well, it's 150 million, as I recall, because he's on satellite, right? I think he's on satellite radio, maybe, perhaps.
Is he still on Twitch?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think his deal makes him on the paid per service only.
I lost touch with Alex, like a long time ago. Like his yelling and like seeing the veins in his neck and his fucking eyes bulging, like that started to raise a red flag to me. I was like, dude, this dude is way too amped. This is too much hype. There's something not right with this. And
So,
I fell off. I was like, I'm not listening to this shit anymore.
Yeah, it's just circus freakdom, pretty much. It's Spotify, actually. Rogan has a deal with Spotify. It's more than 100 million. That's it. So this is from 2020. He has $100 million. I thought it was 150, but it's 100 million. I think it's the real problem. And Dragons of Genesis is just echoing what we were saying. Ripping into Jones, if Rogan had done that, would have cost him millions in the long run. But ultimately, what it boils down to, how much money do you need? How much money do you need? There's this great short story that I always like to reference by Tolstoy, and I believe it's by Tolstoy, about a man who is going out to get land out in eastern Russia. And the deal is that you can get as much land as you want, as you can run, basically, in the course of a day, from sunup to sundown. So if you can run X amount of miles, that's your land, because they were doing like this great expansion out east. And of course, at the end of the story, the short story, the man gets a heart attack and falls flat dead by the time the sun sets. And I think that's an analogy. I think that's a metaphor. It's a good metaphor. With how much do you need? I don't need enough money to tell people lies. I don't have that. I don't need that much money, basically.
If I can interject, I just want to throw back to yesterday's show when we had your friend Chris on.
Chris,
and I was curious as to what was the motivating factor for him going away from the show, and what would it take to bring him back? Because I thought you two were a great combination in the morning, and you had a lot going for you. And it wasn't about money. Yeah. It wasn't about that type of incentive. It was just too much of a drain on his life
Yeah.
And he would do it if that drain wasn't there. And we talked about ways to mitigate that and if that would interest him. And he was absolutely completely honest about it. Yeah. You know, that would,
This kind of goes back into one of the stories Andy was talking about earlier about the 4-hour work week. There was a moment in time where I got a job and they did this 3 on 4 off thing, and then it worked out so well. We were able to get Kendra hired on at the same company, and we're both able to be home with our kids. We're able to. It was a really good period of time. I wish I would have spent my money better at that point in time. It would have been We would have been able to get set up pretty good, but
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
but it makes it to where you can live and still,
Yes, and it seems like companies, at least from what I've seen, there have been some companies that have allowed me to like stack up shifts. So I would work there was one time I was working a 3-day work week because I was doing 2 16 hours, and it was more than possible for the job that I was doing. It was easy enough for me to like do 2 16-hour shifts, 2 doubles, and another 8-hour shift, and I had a 3-day work week, and it was great. But once again, as I'm going to look for new jobs, it's like, well, you got to work you got to work every weekend. It seems as if they cannot handle the concept that you give people when I was managing, it would be you're on every other weekend. You'd at least have, 50% of your weekends off. But a lot of these jobs in human services where you're getting shit paid to begin with, they're like, yeah, you got to work every weekend, at least one day during the week. It's like, well, that's why you can't find people to work for you. If you give them good schedules, they can at least deal with the shitty money that you're giving them. But if you're giving them shit hours plus shit money too, that's why you get the people that you get.
Kendra actually works a lot of Sundays. It's really, you can make really good money at where she's at, but it's messed up because on Sundays there's a lot of these people's she's been given like a wooden cross, and like, have you ever seen these pieces of paper? It looks like money, and then you flip it over and it freaking has some stupid Bible verses. Like, there's people like that on Sundays as well, where it's kind of like this. It's
that is
I don't
crazy.
know. I feel for it because we're in a pretty our little town is pretty religious.
Yeah. Dragon says Chris burned out too much. He did. It did what I mean. You will see that I will, in a variety of different ways, whether on this show or other people's show, I'll be like, well, have you thought about doing this? Or, I don't want to tell people, I don't want to do the hard sell and say, you're gonna not be successful or you're gonna burn out. But I've had conversations with Chris about, I think if you spend your energies doing XYZ as against to this, then, very, and this is my own persecution from complex, and I know that very few people listen to Andy Hall.
Andy, when I was very young, my sisters were both working at the amusement park nearby our place, and one day I went down there with my dad to drop the girls off at the park, and this guy Fred Glasgow, who had a horrible voice and accent, said to my dad, who's the kid? Does he want to work? And my dad looked at me and said, do you want to work? And I'm like, yeah. So they made me what was called a ball boy.
Right.
So in the games where you throw the balls at the punks or at the glass windows or at the plates or whatever, there's somebody to go through and pick all those up, put them back in baskets, and set them up for the carny operator.
Right.
So that they're not cleaning up the game; they're actually selling the game to the people. So there's a compressor, and you blow up balloons for the balloon dart game and stuff like that. So I started working 2 weeks before my 13th birthday.
Wow.
I worked weeknights and weekends because on weekends, that's when people go to the carnival, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I did that for basically my entire high school career, working nights and still maintaining a C plus average in high school, putting in 6 hours on weekdays and sometimes 12 hours on the weekends.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was a hard push to start that early in life, but boy, does it ever teach you a lot of life lessons working in that sort of environment for a pittance. It was really funny because I started, I mean, this is how old I am. I started at $3 an hour, and
Oh, yeah.
minimum wage went up to $3.65, so I got a raise.
You got the. I remember getting paid 3 something an hour and getting the raise, like a nickel raise or whatever, and
Yeah.
thinking, man, I'm making bank now. I was in high school, of course. I was working
Mhm.
at a CVS, but I thought I was making bank. Sure.
Yeah. But that you can, I mean, it's an easy way to burn out if you push yourself too hard. And I wouldn't suggest that any high school student, especially middle school,
Yeah.
is what you guys call it down there, right?
Yeah, middle school. It's
It's too hard to push. You've got to focus on your education, especially if you have any chance of getting a scholarship or getting the type of grades that'll get you into a good institution
Yeah.
post secondary.
right.
Yeah, and they're talking about raising the minimum working age in the United States as well, aren't they? Or was that somewhere else they were talking about that?
That sounds awfully socialistic, Dave.
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound like us. If anything, we would be pushing the age down. Why can't we have 9-year-olds work at the loom like they did at the old days, right? My work, Donna, I've worked for over 25 years with people who have disabilities, basically. Men who have had brain injuries, people born with intellectual, physical disabilities. That's what I've been doing. And you know, Jason, this is exactly the joke I was thinking of. But thank you for saying it. When I was a Catholic altar boy, the priest made me a boy.
I was trying to avoid the easy lob into the.
Oh, I understand. It was right there. Someone had to take a shot at it. Someone had to take a shot at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I've been doing this kind of gig. Like I said, I've been blogging for a long time, and just in the year that, or more than a year that I've been doing this, is like, yeah, you got to pace yourself out. Otherwise, you are going to burn out, and you gotta think about where are your energies best used. You know, and how are you going to best use your energies?
Well, I will say our family had pet stores when I was very young, and part of my duties or chores or whatever you want to call them was going in and cleaning out the animal cages and siphoning out the fish tanks and, you know, cleaning up the store, mopping the floor, that sort of thing. But in a family business, that's I mean, that's part of life. That's a little bit of teaching you how to work and teaching you responsibility and you know, dealing with animals is never easy, but you know, it is what it is. If your family had a farm, you probably drove a tractor. You probably, you know, did stuff like that. That's how it works. So
yeah, and I think for people who do grow up in family-owned businesses and have to work at an early age, they have an edge on other people later on in life.
yeah. What I don't get it. Dave Carney, who would imagine? Does everyone feel like that? Because
I think, well, no, there's no way. I think that it makes sense to me, Dave. I think that it makes sense that you worked in that kind of environment.
I am a very social creature.
Oh, yeah.
It surprises me that he's not still a carny.
If a better opportunity hadn't come along, right?
Yeah.
Jeez. Although I'm not working today.
No, that's well, you said that you had like an 8-day straight work.
Yeah, August was the best month of work I've had since I started there. But in September, everyone comes back from vacation, and right now the dock is steady, but I wouldn't call it busy.
Right.
So we'll see what tomorrow brings, or maybe this afternoon.
Cool. I heard, and I think it was on a local news channel, that there are a few docks here. There's a lot of imports, exports, stuff being held up because there aren't enough dock workers.
Yeah, if you look at what happened in Southern California, particularly at the LA dock, they're busy every day, all the time.
Hmm.
So when COVID hit, they stopped sending ships over because they couldn't comply with the COVID requirements, and a lot of them got refused. Certain countries weren't allowed to send goods here. So now they've opened up again, and as I understand it, as of yesterday, there was 34 ships in harbor, container ships, and
Right.
these aren't small ships.
No.
These are
No.
like the biggest ones we deal with here. There's 34 of them stacked up waiting to be unloaded, and they take days to unload
Sure.
each one.
Yeah.
So there's enough work to put them through to next year already, waiting for them. So now all the ships are diverting because they're not getting appointments at that dock.
Yeah.
They're diverting to Portland and Tacoma and other docks, just because they're all backed up. I can't imagine with the volume of goods on the East Coast what it looks like out there, but I imagine Philadelphia is ridiculous.
Yeah.
New York would be. I mean, New York has a lot of workers and they get through some stuff fast, but you stack up 50 ships and that's a lot of work waiting.
Yeah. Yeah. True enough. True enough.
Yeah, which is why we can't buy video cards or PlayStation 5s because they're all sitting in the damn ocean.
Well, that's been my real issue right there with buying my PlayStation, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That took a left turn. Anyway, sorry to divert everyone off of this.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, if we didn't have these diversions, then we wouldn't talk about testicular explosions or Joe Rogan,
Right.
or atheists becoming Muslims, or any of those interesting conversations that we have.
The whole theme of the after show is diversions.
That's true. That's true.
If there weren't diversions, we wouldn't have a show.
True enough.
Jesse Bear said, I drove through Philly over the weekend. So many boats just chilling. Yeah, they're called at anchor or port waiting. And I don't know if they're container ships, but we have container ships and coal ships and other agricultural ships basically stacked up out here. So we're one of the busier ports in Canada, but we're nothing compared to LAX or Philly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point. If you have, there can be a lot of material stuff there that never gets to people, that never gets to consumers. Yeah, I could give a World War II analogy there, but a story about that. But this isn't. No, I'm not going to do that because it always seems to go back to Nazis before me.
Do you remember the fires that we had out here? They actually burned down a couple of rail bridges. So the agricultural goods that come from the Canadian prairies that go out through Vancouver, none of them were moving for like 2.5 weeks while they repaired the bridges. So that stacked up the stuff going out as well.
So I just want to point out that, when you talk about, and I'm not saying we're at societal collapse at all, but when you look at how societies collapse in the past, it isn't just one thing typically. It's a multiple of factors, a bunch of factors that just happen to occur relatively at the same time. And
it's like when an accident happens, there's usually 3 or 4 causes.
Right. And it's the same thing with it's the same thing when you're working for a company, maybe on the deck on at a port, and it still works on a greater societal basis, like the Maya, or it's like, well, things happened and then there was just a societal collapse.
Yeah, we have a structure that's not unlike the military, where there is a ship foreman and there's a crane foreman and there's a crew foreman, and they all have their intermediary responsibilities to get stuff done there. And then each person working under them has, a designation. We have people who are operating forklifts or trucks to run around. There's people who are unlashing and unlocking the containers on the ship. We have people who they have stackers in them to hold the containers together. We have people who do that. So it's a beautiful orchestra of chaos when you go to the dock and you see 3 big ships there, and you see like in Vancouver, we can have up to 150 what they call multis, those trucks that run the containers around.
Mhm.
Then each one of those goes to either an overhead crane or like a forklift type machine that lifts those up and puts them away. And guys that are plugging and unplugging them from the electricity for the refrigerated containers.
Mm.
And it's just this incredible amount of movement of very large things. And we get millions of containers moved a year because this chaos is so organized.
So Dave, I'm going to ask you a stupid question. Let's say a foreman fucks up and kills a bunch of people by one of their mistakes. Does that foreman still have a job?
There's a review process.
Okay, but at least they're not like going to get promoted.
Well, again, it's rare that one person could do one thing that would cost multiple people their lives.
Okay.
It would take that person and another person and
Right.
another person, right?
The-
It's usually threes in the things that we do. Yeah.
Interesting. The reason why
or one very motivated person.
Oh, right. So, yeah. So I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts. It's called Common Sense by Dan Carlin. He also does hardcore history, and he dropped a new Common Sense podcast yesterday. And he echoed, or we had a similar attitude about the Afghanistan fiasco and the Iraq fiasco. That you have all these people giving commentary now about the Afghanistan fiasco, or who were in control of the Afghanistan fiasco, were the ones who fucked it up.
Yeah.
like there's like a laundry list of people who fucked it up, and they're the same people out now talking about the fuck ups and giving analysis of the fuck ups. And I could almost see him like doing this while I was listening to his podcast. He's like, these people should be fired. They if you are wrong, then you shouldn't be promoted up. You should just be put out to pasture, and you gotta let people who actually have been right and have a good fucking batting average. And I was just thinking about this the other day. Like when you have these fucking fuckers right on TV giving analysis, there should be stats. Tell me if I'm fucking wrong. There should be stats. I don't know what the stats are, but I was watching a Red Sox game the other day, and they had a guy come out as a relief pitcher who had an ERA of like around 5. And I'm going, I don't know if this is going to look good. I don't know if this is going to. I don't know if I trust this guy to be the relief pitcher here to get the last inning out. I think they should be that for talking heads. It's like you got to have some kind of stats about how right they've been. There has to be a way of doing that.
Or what their position is. I mean, with this whole Afghanistan thing, like for how many years did we listen to Trump, like from 2016 forward, say, we're bringing our troops home. We're not going to be at war anymore. And who's the first one out there? Biden fucked up this whole thing and brought our troops home.
Right.
Put those like side by side, and we could do a Trump versus Trump debate and maybe do the same for some of these other hypocrites out there. And
So yeah, that's my minute of rage here on this show, not to be confused with the 50 minutes of rage from the other show. But yeah, stats and people who are just wrong should be fucking fired. I'm also, because there's only like maybe 10 people who watch this show, right? There are other people in our regular everyday lives that you see, oh, you have failed catastrophically, and yet you still get promoted. It's like, that's also wrong, Greg Epstein from the humanist chaplaincy in Harvard. All this, see, this is usually stuff that I say for like when the camera's not on, but the man drove the humanist hub into the ground in Harvard Square. He drove it into the ground, didn't take the job seriously, and now he's the head chaplain over at Harvard. And if you fuck up and if you fail, you should not get promoted. You should not fall up. Right. And it's the middle class guy in me, but I tell you, if you fuck something up, you should not get promoted.
The problem is
it's crazy. Like I really want to add this to. There's like all these different companies and stuff that have had like real horrible accidents, like places that are adventure places or like roller coaster places and stuff where horrible things freaking happen, and they still continue to be able to operate in things like that. I mean, we have gotten more stringent and a lot more with regulations, but it is crazy some of the
Yeah.
historical events that have happened, and people, tons of people died,
I,
and it's the responsibility. It I don't know. It seems to me like there's no like justice in some of those.
I agree.
If you have a prominent position, it's forgive and forget. If you're a nobody, crack down on them.
That's what it is. That's completely what it is, and it's fucking wrong. I was just I remember hearing the Purdue family and the opioid epidemic. I don't know if we've covered that before. The recent story. Well, 18 hours ago, I'm looking at the story right now on NPR. Sackler family wins immunity from opioid lawsuits in Purdue Pharma bankruptcy. So the idea that the family who helped orchestrate the opioid epidemic can win immunity. Those people should be personally held. If you can see that people are making choices to harm the public, then those people need to go to jail.
But there's a fine line between them aggressively marketing their product.
If they're lying about the facts, then they should go to jail.
Yeah, and but we, like I was saying earlier, we've put together a system. I mean, North America, the United States, and Canada. We've put together systems where the people in control of aggressively pursuing these people for crimes are the same group of people. And they're looking at it like, if I put John on the cross and nail him to it and let him dry out in the sun, what happens to me when I make a mistake?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right about that. There has to be a way. There has to be a way to create incentives in organizations that actually reward people not being fucking dicks.
Or there should be rules like where a corporation goes under and tremendous losses of jobs, of money, of debt, the people involved in the finances for making the decisions at the very top of that company, CEO, CFO, the top people in the financial services of that company should not be permitted to hold those positions again for years.
Yeah.
If they have made those decisions that cost those jobs. The problem is somebody takes them out and puts them into another company and they do the same thing.
Yeah. Totally. D Parks from the chat. Sounds like this crazy story. I'm so irritated that the other day I was told I should be run out of town because I deny that the former guy is still president. Yeah, D. Yeah. When I can, I need to move. Indeed. My heart goes out to you, D. My heart goes out to you. On a lighter note, Dragons says a potentially lethal amusement park adds to the excitement. Will I enjoy the ride? Will I die horribly? No one knows.
Well, we've discussed it on this channel before, and that's kind of my job.
Dude.
Hey, go hang from that crane. Go climb up on top of those 90 feet of containers, and go work next to this rail yard where they're indexing 50,000 pound or 50,000 kilo rail yard trains. And yeah, it's a dangerous place to work. But what's strange about it is after years of working there, I understand where the safe places are and how the controls all work, where the people are, what systems are in place, and what, we have PPE, the personal protective gear. We lift, the other day we were doing coils of wire out of a hold, and we emptied half the hold. So we're like halfway down the hold, jumping over coils of wire to run straps through them and have the crane take out like 8 of these at a time, 30,000 pounds, and they're 80 feet in the air above not above our heads, but above. the hatch, and we move to a safe place on the other side of the hatch, and the crane operator knows what he's doing, the foreman knows what he's doing, and all that. When you're up at height, you work with a harness on, and with fall arrest and that sort of thing. It's as safe as you can make it.
Mhm.
But it's still an amusement park ride almost every day.
Yes, that's a
Hmm.
good way of looking at it. Scapegoat is scary. It says, live in North Carolina. I stopped trying to go to social events because of all the lunacy and occasional violence over 20 years ago. Yeah, there are places, definitely. There are places here that I will not go, or social events I won't go to, because I'm thinking, it's a little too shady. Like, the Brockton Fair, where I grew up. People, stabbings and stuff. Yeah, I've aged out of that kind of danger. I know the Dave, that's foreign to you about aging out of danger. Danger Dave. Or maybe that should be.
Aging out of danger. I've never heard that phrase before.
Well, I have aged out of danger. Yes, out of a lot of danger. And
Aren't you
Yeah,
younger
thrill
than me?
seeking is not
I
like
am, Dave.
I used
I
to.
am younger than you. I'm sorry, Tobin. Go ahead.
Yeah, thrill seeking has kind of lost its glamour to me. I'm like, now I look at a lot of that stuff and I'm like, yeah, like Dave, your job, I don't know. I don't know if I could really do that myself, like being up at those heights on a routine basis.
You get so used to it
Yeah.
after doing it. Even when the other day I sent Andy a picture of us, we were working 132 feet off the water with a 2-inch pipe railing between us and the back of the ship. And we're working on containers. We were up there for a couple hours. After the first 6 minutes, you're on a very, very sturdy platform, and you're working with a partner, and somebody's watching you, and the crane operator's watching you, and you're getting your work done, right? It's just, I've become kind of accustomed to, I know whether one of these walkways is 4 feet off the ground or 104 feet off the ground, they're equally as safe.
Say that again, but slowly.
Are you sure? Because I feel like I'm giving you anxiety, Andy.
I'm just putting on this is one of my skeptical tricks, as people know. I have a few, sleight of hand tricks, a few rhetorical tricks, and one of them is asking or repeating what the person said a little bit more slowly.
Okay. So whether the walkway is 4 feet off the ground or 104 feet off the ground, they are equally as safe.
Okay.
It's the fall that changes, and nobody, you just don't fall. That's the deal.
I just love your rhetorical somersaults, Dave. Really great. I love your apologists, your apologetics for gravity right now. It's fucking epic. And now this is when you tell me to go fuck myself.
We'll have to cut that. I think we ran over the end of the show. We'll have to cut that part. If I ever become the bookings guy, I'm going to get you some shitty gigs.
All right.
Oh shit!
Believe me, I can tell you about shitty gigs. Doing a shitty gig on YouTube is nothing like doing a shitty gig in person. So yeah.
I've gone out and played at those bars, and there's like nobody there except for the bartender and maybe the person who set up the gig, and you're just like with your buddies in a bar, and you can't even drink because you're not even 21 yet.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Jesse Beer says, to Dave, her dad works in construction and commercial sites. He's always sending me a pic of him crazy high on scaffolding. He trusts his gear. I guess, that's what it takes. And I can agree with the assertion. I trust my gear. What does seem to be that the light goes off is when 104 or 140 feet seem to be the same as 4 feet. That seems...
But you're not
man, there's so many stories that start running through my head whenever those things are said, because I've known people who've been hooked up on a roof. They had a rope, but they themselves did not check it, or the person who rigged it up did not check it, and the person got up there and they gave one of those tugs to be like, is this really working nice? And as soon as he gave that last little tug, it snapped and he threw off his weight. He rolled down the roof. Like, I don't know. It's you have to be like, check your double check.
Oh yeah.
Like, see that kind of stuff. Yeah, I would be like, there would definitely have to be a lot of procedures and stuff for me to feel comfortable in that.
And there is. When you first start, you don't observe everything. They just tell you, go do this there. But after you've worked there for a while, you've done a bunch of different jobs, and some of your jobs are the steps in place to make sure that people up there are safe. Every shift when we go out, it starts with a gear check. And every sling that we put on something is checked by the guy who's handling it. Every hook that they put it on is checked by the person who puts it on the hook. And the other day we had bad slings we had to throw out. We had a hook that broke in the middle of a shift. They replaced it. We have people to take care of that. And we have procedures in place. And there is zero tolerance for failure on this. Like, if you drop something, the first thing you're going to do is deafen everyone that you work with. Because the boom from this stuff is not light.
Oh, I'm sure it sends a shock wave.
Yeah. So this little railing you see on the left-hand side of the screen, I don't know if you can see my mouse there, but this little railing goes all the way across the back of the ship. And I think I told you how long the Conti Courage, if you look it up online, I think it's 360 meters long. Wow. Each one of these containers here is 9.5 feet tall, and you can see the tops of the fourth one. So the deck here is about 50 feet up, and we're looking over the fifth can. Yeah. So we're probably about yay high on the back of the ship, looking 3 cans up at what we're doing. So you're not looking off the ship. You're not looking down at the water. You're looking at the work you're doing, right? So,
yeah, ships are a lot bigger than anything that shows up in St. Paul here. we just deal with river barges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I sometimes ride past the barges and the rail yard and stuff. That's a extensive area, but it's like, yeah, nothing that scale goes on here.
Yeah, we're not a super port, but we get our fair share of stuff. I wanted to show Andy. I think I showed Andy this. Hang on, let me. Yeah, that's called the beer gardens.
Oh yeah,
and it's an actual container,
right?
That you can see with a gate and a big. There's like a 3-inch railing here on the back. So you go up in this, when you have to unlock containers that are too high to reach from the deck, you go up in this and they hover it over the top of the containers. So you go up to max height on the crane. So you're 132 feet to the bottom of the container. And you go out across the ship and they lower you down on top of the containers so that you can unlock them so the crane can pull them off. Right. So you have one person on this end and one person on this end, and your foreman is usually in the middle monitoring what's going on and talking to the crane operator and that sort of thing. You're in a safety harness on a wire, and this is not only locked into the crane, but there are 4 gigantic chains that would hold elephants up. Everything that we work with in this thing is rated at 5 times the weight that they're actually lifting. So even if one thing went wrong, you have an arrest system, you have fall protection, you have all of these things in place. And when you're up over the ship, you're only 8 inches over the container underneath you. So if you fell, you'd fall 8 inches. It's very, very safe.
So I'm curious about this, and this is the last question before I close out the show. So I imagine that there's a certain amount of transparency in the organization that you work for, and that it's publicly known, like what's the batting average, so to speak, for the dock. In other words, how many people, if anyone, gets hurt or damaged over the course of a year.
Is that a question?
That is a question, I'm guessing.
Unfortunately, I am not a representative of the union nor of the company I work for, and I'm not permitted to disclose that type of information.
Okay. And this is today's apologetics and anti-apologetics TED Talk. Thank you, everyone, for attending. There's proof in the pudding and the tasting of it. And so there you go. People are hiding information. And no offense to you, Dave. I'm just talking about the organizations that you work for. If they're hiding information, then there's information to be hid.
Oh, I don't know if they're hiding it or they just prefer that it be released in a specific manner by specific people who do that.
Okay. All right. I've given you enough shit today, Dave. I just I've given you enough shit today.
And if I can throw one last thing out, my apologies to the girlfriend, and I hope that the therapy today goes well with Dr. Kennard.
Everyone in the chat, thanks. We'll do the same crazy thing tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Thanks, panel. Yeah, Shamla.
Hamala.